Good Boy. This is a movie I was really anticipating this year. I watched a lot of movies this year, a lot of horror movies especially, but this is one that really caught my eye because it was a concept that I had never really seen done before in film. It was a horror movie from the perspective of a dog. And if you guys, are into, the supernatural or things of that nature, you guys understand that usually within horror or anywhere in real life, that dogs and babies are usually two of the things that are able to see more of the supernatural things that go on in the world, depending on what you believe in. Seeing a movie to where this dog is doing a thing that a lot of dog owners kind of feel weird about in regards to seeing a dog bark at things in the corner or look at things that maybe not be there. It's dope to see this in movie format. So I want to sit down and discuss why I think this is an amazing movie and why you need to spend your money to go see this movie. So let's get into it.
You're now watching The Captain.
First and foremost, I understand if you guys have watched my channel for a while, I say a lot of good things about movies. So I want to get this out the way first and foremost. I only really try to review movies on my channel or things on the channel that I enjoy and things that I love. Not very often are you going to see me purposely go see something that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like just so I can go into it with the biased perspective of hating it. For the most part, you guys are going to see videos on things that I cover on this channel that I go into expecting to be good or things that interest me. If they end up being great, cool. That's what I expected. That's what I hope for. If it ends up being bad and mediocre, disappoints me. Cool. But I'm gonna give you guys my genuine, honest opinion on my personal perspective on these movies. Getting into this film, this movie is very special to me for a few reasons. First and foremost, I am a dog owner myself as of around 2 years. So this movie is something that I really was able to connect with for the factor of I, just like any other dog owner, have seen my dog do weird shit. And I'm like, why are you doing weird shit? So going into this movie to where this dog is seemingly doing weird shit from the person's perspective is dope to see. This movie essentially is going to be a film where you're following the story of Indy, and he is following his owner Todd around from place to place and observing his owner being haunted for the most part. Now, before I get into the plot of this, I want to let you guys know this will be a spoiler review. So if you guys don't want to hear spoilers, I will in this first half of this video talk about the aspects of the film and what made the film. And I'll get into some of the spoiler stuff with the plot synopsis in the second half of the video. So I'll let you know when you can dip out. But for starters, in the making of this movie and how this movie was made, I think there's one thing people need to know about this film. This movie was made with only 2 people. Now, obviously there were editors and other people that were involved in this film, but as far as the shooting of this movie and the directing of this movie, it was done with 2 people. Ben Leonberg and his wife, for whatever reason, decided to have a DIY side project at home. They sat down over the course of 3 years and filmed this movie with their dog, Indy. And the interesting thing about this movie, and a lot of this information you'll see at the end of the film where he will give a little 3 to 4 minute chunk explaining how they made it, but they filmed this movie in a few complicated ways. One, first and foremost, they were only able to shoot around 3 hours a day because they were pretty much running on their dog's schedule with how he would cooperate with them. So 3 hours a day over the course of 3 years, for however long it took them to finish this movie outright. And they filmed it all within their home. I never knew that you could get a movie of this quality at home. Obviously, they aren't just like regular amateur people that don't know how to make movies. Ben has directed a few films at this point, and I assume that his wife had some experience within the film industry, if not, following the instructions of Ben. So these aren't rookies we're talking about here. These are people that kind of know how to make movies. But the fact that somebody was able to, within the confines of their own home, with their personal dog, who is not trained by any way, like Indy, he explained to us that Indy is not like a ex-police dog. He's not an ex-bloodhound. He's not a hunting dog. He's just a regular dog that most people would have in their everyday life. But they were able to, in a few different ways, kind of get him to cooperate with them so they could film this film. This movie was dope even further to me for the factor of, I hear people all the time discuss how they want to see original stories within Hollywood. They're tired of the requels and the sequels and the sequels of the requels and the requels of the sequels. They want to see new things. This movie is the new thing. This movie is a story that is uniquely written and extremely so uniquely directed. I hope this movie gets the same word to mouth like a movie like Sinners or The Long Walk this year got, because I think it's just as deserving. Now, is it going to be as flashy, as sexy? No, because again, this movie was made with probably a shoestring budget and made with 2 people. So it's not going to be as sexy as those other films were, because there was a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more people involved in the filming of those things. But this movie movie I do think holds up in the quality in regards to how it was prepared, how it was filmed, and just the passion that went into this. Because I felt like for somebody to be filming a movie over the course of 3 years, one thing, you have to have passion for this thing. But anyway, getting into the way this movie was filmed, outside of the little tricks of the trade, like I mentioned before, in regards to Indy being filmed for 3 hours each day over the course of 3 years, there's another thing in the editing for this that really made this movie great. And this is going to be a little bit of a film theory lesson for some of the people that aren't familiar with a lot of this stuff. And I wasn't familiar with it until I saw this movie and had to, give myself some education on how this thing works. This movie is a true definition of a film concept called the Kuleshov effect. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. The Kuleshov effect is essentially a film theory editing trick that is utilized in movies to manipulate emotion through editing and through composition. I'll explain it like this. Let's say you have a shot of somebody looking dead at you and you're not seeing anything else but this person's face. But then right after a couple seconds, you cut to a bowl of soup or a sandwich. You would assume that this person is hungry from you watching this. You just have the juxtaposition of this person looking and the sandwich. Or you'd assume there's something going on with this food, or there's something involving food with this person. Now let's say you take the same shot of somebody looking directly at the camera and then you cut to a coffin with a body in it. You'd assume that this person is sad because there's death or this person's creeped out. This is essentially what this movie is utilizing from the start to the end. You're seeing a million shots of this dog Indy, and then you're cutting to different spooky or sad things that are making you think as an audience that Indy is feeling this different wide array of emotions. Now, is him as a dog really showcasing different facial expressions or emotion through his eyes? Yes, he's doing the typical things that dogs would do in regards to dogs begging for food or whatever it may be. But from the way that Ben explained it in the post-credit stuff, when he was giving a breakdown, he talked about how this is just regular expressions that his dog has every day, but people felt different ways throughout the film just through the editing and the close-up effect. So I love well-crafted jump scares, movies that take the time to build up suspenseful moments that really get you building up on the edge of your seat over time, and to the point to where they capitalize on that with the scare, or maybe a fake out to a scare, whatever it may be. I need to feel like you earn that scare from me, and this movie definitely did this. As somebody who watches a lot of horror movies, I don't get hit with too many jump scares that actually scare me. So the fact that this one got me to jump out my skin is something that doesn't happen to me that often. Maybe just because I'm desensitized to it, or I'm sick in the head now, I don't know. But this movie got one out of me. This movie was just really well made all around, and it just made the most out of what seemed like the least. Matter of fact, let me look up the budget for this film, just out of curiosity. There isn't a budget reported for the film as of my time of recording this video because it's so recent, but I assume it's at least a couple $1,000s, or maybe bare minimum like a couple hundred, probably a couple thousand, just because I doubt this movie is nowhere near even a fraction of the budget that you're looking at when you're looking at movies that came out this year, like A Hymn or The Long Walk or Sinners, anything that was actually big in horror this year. This movie was probably made on a shoestring budget. This movie is a pure example of why I love horror movies so much in general as a genre. It is a genre that pushes cinema forward with the least amount of resources possible, and it's just people that are passionate about making this movie. Obviously, you can see movies like this that may kind of have a similar model in like comedy or maybe some rom-com stuff, maybe some low budget action stuff, but I feel like horror is a movie genre that just has to do more to be more respected in cinema in general. People like to put a horror within this box, and movies like this really showcase the upper limits and the creativity that these people that are passionate about making movies can do when they go into the horror genre. So anyway, I know I'm ranting, but let's get back into the film itself and move on to the spoiler section of the movie. Looking into the synopsis. So this movie essentially is one that's pretty short in regards to the story in itself. We start with the film opening up in an apartment to where this owner is, I guess, slumped over, is sick for whatever reason and bleeding out of his mouth. And you see Indy, the bestest boy, wake up and notice a dark shadowy figure in the corner of the room. We find out over time that the person that is owner of this dog, Indy, named Todd, he is sick with some sort of unnamed, undiagnosed condition or disease. We'd assume it's cancer of some sort. And he essentially is kind of going through this, I guess, existential crisis where he's trying to understand and coming to terms with the fact that he's dying. He leaves the city and leaves his apartment to go to this family home in the middle of the woods in bumblefuck nowhere, and decides he's just gonna stay there with himself and with his dog until he passes or until he gets better. He's even running away from his sister, who is super concerned about him and really kind of bugging him every day to kind of keep up with him and keep check on him and see how he's doing. But he obviously is just not wanting to be around anyone in the world right now. He just wants to keep it to him and his dog as he kind of goes off into the sunset with this disease. We see in different instances him going out to doctors and getting CAT scans and different things of that nature. For the most part, the movie takes place within this home, this family home. And it's very interesting how this takes place, because for the most part, you're seeing this shadowy figure from the city even going to the family home. So you're under the assumption that Todd is being haunted by something. But you notice throughout the film that this shadowy figure only ever really pops up when Todd is like coughing profusely, or when he's feeling really bad and it's very obvious that he's feeling bad. Kind of giving you the idea that this thing that is surrounding him and looming over him isn't a demon or a ghost haunting him, but death itself. Like death coming to claim his soul and waiting for him to die. And as this is happening, you're seeing Indy, being a dog, being very perceptive of all this. And you're watching him see this ghost everywhere and this demon everywhere. You're seeing this demon interact with Indy in his dreams. And again, this really fucks with somebody that's an owner of a dog, because if you watch your dog and pay very close attention to your dog, you're gonna see your dog do a lot of the similar things that Indy does in this film. When they're sleeping and you're seeing them being hyperactive in their sleep, when you're seeing them kind of just look off into the corner at something without making a sound, or you see them whine at something that maybe makes them uncomfortable, you're gonna really start to, in your own home, kind of be like, is my dog looking at a demon? Or is my dog just bored? I don't know. And this is another reason why I think this movie is so amazing. I love when movies, especially horror movies, let you leave the theater with a new perspective on life. Like, it makes you think about what you're going to experience and how you see the world differently for at least a day or so. Like, for a little bit, it sort of made me watch my dog for the foreseeable future and make sure that we're checking things out comfortably. Hell, honestly, if I ever buy a house, if I can ever afford to buy a house, I'm gonna make sure my dog is the first person that goes through this house to make sure he's not seeing anything off before I buy a house. That's how I go with things. I'm gonna take the dog and then I'm gonna take a baby and test this shit out. We essentially just follow Todd throughout the entire movie as he's getting closer and closer to death. And as he's getting sicker and sicker, you're seeing more and more instances of this ghost demon reaper pop up throughout the film. And there's different sequences where you're seeing Indy maybe be left by himself for a little period of time. And again, this goes back into the way it was filmed. You're seeing a million shots at the level of where Indy is. Like, it's from a dog's point of view and from the perspective that they would experience things. So it makes you feel very much so even more claustrophobic. This film has a really good cheat code in the fact that this is a dog as the leading character. So most people that have souls and that are kind to people, they feel sympathy for a dog or an animal whenever it's in any uncomfortable situation. So when you're seeing the dog left at home with the spirit, or you're seeing the spirit come around, it makes you feel queasy and uneasy and really fearful for the dog, especially when you get to the point where you find out about Todd's grandfather. We find out that this home that Todd has ran away to was a home that was owned by his grandfather that's been passed down in the family. And he died there through some kind of weird means. I think his Todd's sister and a neighbor that lived around the area both reference how their granddad like passed away in a weird way by himself in the home, which from the flashbacks we get where we're seeing Indy encounter or see things from that past of seeing how Todd's grandfather passed away, it seems as though that he passed away from a similar sickness. So I'm not sure if this like cancer or disease is something that's hereditary, or if this is something that's been brought on by being in the home for a long period of time. I don't know. There's not a lot of hard concrete explanation on how a lot of this stuff works, which I don't think there needs to be. Essentially, we find out that Todd eventually dies after dealing with his sickness throughout the whole film, and he essentially sees his own dead body and sees Indy. We're seeing that Indy is able to interact with spirits and the dead, and he sees his owner. And the sad thing about this is that Indy doesn't ever want to abandon Todd. Like, through multiple instances in this film, Indy has an opportunity to just run away and cower and never come back. But we see in multiple instances, Indy will run to go get help for Todd. Indy will stay by Todd's side even when he's terrified. Like, this is just like the literal definition of man's best friend. This dog does not want to ever leave the side of his owner, and he really does his best to care for his owner. Even after his owner has passed away, at the end of the film, we see that the spirit essentially is dragged to hell or corrupted. Again, not really concrete in regards to how that operates, but we see that Todd's spirit essentially is taken away, and he tells Indy that he's a good boy, and he leaves and tells him that he can't go with him where he's going, essentially. And we see that Indy is trapped in home because it was just him and Todd, and there's no way for Indy to open a door to get out of wherever he is. And we find out that this kind of happened with his grandfather's last dog, Bandit, that we see Indy kind of, I guess, see premonitions of or see throughout different parts of the film, like the dog's a ghost as well. And we see the corpse of Bandit in the basement where he died, and his bones, you know, just where his body is pretty much decayed, and all you see is his bones and his bandana. And you find out through that moment in time that this is probably how things may go for Indy, where Todd dies and he's trapped in the house, and because no one's there to check on him and no one's there to feed him, he just dies of starvation, and that's a horrible death, which is sad to see. Shout out my nigga Bandit. Bandit died a really sad death, but you're under the assumption that Indy is going to die a very similar death by seeing the bones there. But eventually, at the end of the film, the sister comes back around to check on him one more time and finds that her brother has died, and then she collects Indy. But the really beautiful thing that I noticed at the end of the film is that Indy, even given an opportunity to, you know, get out of this dark, creepy basement and go to sunlight and go to somebody he knows, he still is really hesitant to leave because he does not want to leave his best friend in Todd by himself. And it's just really beautiful. And again, as somebody that has a dog, you would love to think that your dog loves you that much. How I love my dog that much. So it's beautiful. This movie definitely is a cheat code because it has something in a dog that people usually inherently care for. And that's something that's amazing when it comes to horror movies, because usually the most difficult part of not just horror movies, but writing stories in general is creating characters and side characters that the audience actually cares about. So when you have something like a dog that people inherently have some form of sympathy and empathy for, it's not hard to make people care about a dog. So this movie was well made again, and I really wish that people would, you know, go see more films like this and get more films like this the time of day and give it your money if you have it. Honestly, it may not be for everybody because it is a little bit of it's a little bit of a slow burn. It is a slow burn because it kind of ramps up, and once you get to a certain point, it kind of speeds towards the end. But again, if you want to see something new, if you want to see a story that's not a requel of a prequel and a prequel of a requel, and it's a story that you've seen a million different times, go watch this movie because this is a very uniquely written film, and it's different from anything that I've ever seen before personally. But yeah, honestly, rating and reviewing Good Boy, I'd probably give this thing like a solid like 8.5 out of 10. I know I gassed it up and gave all this love for it. Just because I give this an 8 doesn't mean it wasn't a good movie. I just think that there are some aspects of it that could have been done a little bit better, like the pacing. But yeah, I love this movie. I love this movie. I love this movie. Please go support Good Boy. Go watch this thing in theater. So shout out to Ben Lienberg for making this film. Shout out to your fantastic wife for assisting with this, and shout out to the bestest boy in the world, Indy, for being a good boy in making this movie. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below how you guys feel about this film. You let me know you agree with any of the thoughts and sentiments that I have on this film, and let me know if you plan to go see this movie in yourself. So everybody, hug your dogs, kiss your babies, and be good people. It is spooky season. So again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo, and remember, forever and always,
You're now watching the Captain.
and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.